Pop. Here's your host, Wilf Gilby.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Vox Pop. And this morning, as our guest, we have a gentleman who's a well-known retired teacher, principal, community worker, and promoter and entertainer. We're going to talk with him about 40-odd years of activity on the local Swift Current and Southwest scene. Our guest, of course, is Mr. Ken Lewis. And Ken, it's a big pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Very happy to be here.
And with you, I think the best way to do this is sort of go right into it. And the water might be cold, the old saying is get used to it in a big hurry. But I'm not quite sure where we should start in your case, but let's ask you first, when did you retire?
I retired in 1971, June of 1971,
Well, now that suggests an obvious question. Where have you been for the past several years?
Well, I've been enjoying retirement, and I haven't been in the classroom. And I've been really enjoying a lot of community activities and performing and becoming involved in hobbies and this sort of thing, and I've really enjoyed it.
You have been, you've still been calling Swift Current home, though, have you?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Well, okay, now that brings us up to date on where you've been since 1971. To go right back now to the beginning, where was your original, or what do you claim is your original hometown, Ken?
Well, I was born just east of Swift Current at Waldeck, and I moved from Waldeck, I'd be about 1921 or 22, with Mother and Dad. Dad had been the village blacksmith there for a number of years, from 1907 on. And we moved to Regina in about 22, and I would be, I guess, in grade 6 in Regina. I went to Connaught down there and moved across to the north side, Albert, where I spent 1 year in grade 8 and then 4 years in Scott Collegiate. And from there I went to normal school.
Was your selection of the city of Swift Current and your subsequent arrival on the local scene, was that a choice by design, or was it by chance, or was it modified by circumstance?
Well, I suppose to a certain extent by design, Wilf. Mother and Dad were in Regina when I completed normal, but they became involved or purchased a store at Dunelm, south of Swift Current. It was a little village out there. There isn't much there anymore. There were 2 elevators. They've gone, and the store, I don't think the store is even there today. But Mother and Dad were managing the store out there at Dunelm, and naturally I was interested in teaching in my hometown. So I returned to Dunelm to be with Mother and Dad and the family, and I taught there for 2 years.
Now, as you cast your mind back, and what was the local scene like back in those days? I'm thinking here, the days when you first started in teaching in the Swift Current public school system. It's, the size of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So
I suppose it would be, the population would be around 5,000 or 6,000, as I recall. I know...
Can I interrupt you for a
yes.
moment? Now, we're going back to roughly about, the 1930s?
That's right. It was 1931 I came here in September of 1931, and there would be... I think the population was around 5,000 or 6,000. Matter of fact, the population hadn't changed very much from the original incorporation days, when I suppose they needed 5,000 people, and they tell me they counted dogs and everything else to get that 5,000. But it remained fairly constant up until that point. We had 3 schools, as I recall. I don't think we had the St. Pat's separate school there in Swift Current then. I think it was built or opened later on. But we had Oman, Central, and Elmwood. And these 3 schools, incidentally, were built in 1914. And they were at Oman. There were four rooms. There were 8 or 9 at Central, and there were 8, as I recall, at Elmwood School. And of course, they had the Collegiate, which was opened up. And as a matter of fact, the Collegiate was on the top floor of Central School for a number of years, up until about 1929, when they opened up the...
Well, that's something I imagine a lot of us didn't know.
That's right. Well, that's about the time the Collegiate opened. I know, but there were still two grade 9 classes up at Central when I went there in 1944.
Well, now that suggests a couple of things. First of all, that you arrived on the local scene during the earlier years of the Depression, and secondly, that Swift Current really didn't change size-wise for quite a number of years, right up until about 1951 or 52.
That's true. That's true, Wolf. I know in 1938, now that was the year that we had the first Frontier Days, and as I recall, we talked about this city of about 5,000 or 6,000 people being inundated with 25,000 people, you know, and coming into the city for that celebration. That was absolutely frightening and unbelievable.
I'd like to get into Frontier Days, and you're a part of it in a little more depth in a moment. But I'd like to ask you right now, did you, when you, in the early days, did you anticipate spending your active professional life here in Swift Current?
Well, that's a difficult question, Wilf, to answer, but I came here in 31, and I was here about 4 years when I met a very, very lovely lady, Marion Peterson. And as a matter of fact, Ralph Debersey and I fell in love with two sisters, the Peterson girls, and we eventually married both of them. And of course, Marion and I...
you mean you each married one of them?
Oh, that's right. Each married one. But anyway, Marion and I had an early family. As a matter of fact, Beverly Ann was born in 1936. We were married in 1935. Beverly Ann was born in 36. And a year later, I had 3 children. Now, that's pretty good record, 3 in 2 years. I had the twins in 38. And, of course, that settles one down, Wilf, you know, in one spot.
It does.
And I suppose that's the reason that... And, of course, I always loved this community. I loved Waldeck, the Waldeck area. There's wonderful people there. I had a very happy childhood there, and I just loved the community.
Well, now... we've been talking with you in a rather circular pattern here about the fact you were a teacher. Now, what about the schools you were associated with?
Well, I came to Elmwood in, as I say, in 1931. I taught there with Mr. Welch, who was the J.A. Welch, who was the principal for 16 years there prior to my arrival. And in 1935, I assumed the principalship of Elmwood School. Remained there until 1944, and in that year, Mr. J.H. Carefoot, who was principal of Central School, retired, and I moved to Central School, where I remained for 27 years.
Ken, looking back on some 42 years of teaching, you must feel a sense of satisfaction. Can you recall some of these? You can't recall all of them, but can you recall some of the students whom we might know today? Some even might be around today.
Oh boy, now I don't know how many pupils in total I've taught. I suppose this would be run into 2,000 or 3,000, but ones that you would know well. Maybe you know Dr. Jerry Nipfel. He's at the experimental station, of course, son of Earl. Earl's still in town here. Harry Stewart, who is presently employed with the Cypress Hills College, I believe. And Harry's, of course, a councilman in town. Art McWilliam, with McWilliam Construction. These fellows I taught away back at Elmwood School. Myrtle Bain. Betty Cullum, Jimmy Cullum's wife, Betty Weir. She was known before she was married. Eric Malling. Possibly you know Eric. He's in the, I think it's the 5th Estate, is it?
That's right, co-host.
And John McIntosh, Jack McIntosh's son. He's in law here in town. Klein Sinclair at McIntosh Furniture. Jack May, you know Jack. Ron Myers, who succeeded me at Central, and Betty Ann, his wife. I taught them. Ken Horn, the old orchestra leader. Wally Walker, old Lynn Menzies, Biss Whisker. Oh, I could go on, Wilf, but those are some of the ones that I think maybe you would know in town here.
I think a lot of us who've been around for the last 20 or so years on the friendly frontier city scene recognize a lot of those names. Some of them make quite some outstanding contributions.
That's true.
Now, incidentally, and I was afraid for a moment you're going to get ahead of me again, but what of your association with other well-known teachers? And here I'm thinking of Ralph Debersey, Kimmy Aberdeen, as an entertainment group. You weren't always known exclusively or you aren't known exclusively as a teacher and educator.
Well, that was That's very interesting, and it is, and has been a very interesting part of my life here in Swift Current. I met Ralph and Ken. They were boarding at a place, Mr. and Mrs. Graber's on 5th West, I think it was. I was living with my mother and dad a block west of that. Ralph and Ken used to sit at night. Kemmy, of course, was a bit of a guitarist, and he and Ralph would sit there and sing songs, and Kemmy had, of course, a lot of novel numbers. And I used to go over and sit around and sort of join in. Anyway, we started, singing and sort of entertaining ourselves for sheer enjoyment. And, this went on, I suppose, for a year or two, and eventually somebody said, well, hey, come on over and do a little entertaining at a party tonight we're having, or something of this nature. And gradually we moved out and started entertaining groups and lodges and for various occasions. Kevin and Ralph, of course, singing duets, and the three of us took up tap dancing from a Mrs. Moeller here in town, and I became involved in some chalk talk routines, and learned old Dan McGrew and a few recitations, and so eventually we started doing a lot of entertaining, and of course there wasn't a great deal of profit involved in the entertaining in those days.
Incidentally, Ken, if I may ask you, can you hold it right there? I don't like to interrupt you, but we have something in the way of, it's a little bit unique. We have a lady on the phone, and I've been given to understand she is one of triplets whom you taught here in Swift Current. It's a bit of a surprise to you, so I'm going to pass the phone right over to you.
And this is a surprise. Hello.
Yes, Ken. We went to school by you in Dunelm, Peter's triplet.
Oh, yes.
It's our 60th birthday today.
Well, congratulations. I remember you three very, very well.
Yes, and we remember you very well. You were a good teacher.
Which one is speaking to me?
I'm Mary.
Mary.
Tina and Henry.
Yeah, Mary. Oh, yes.
Henry is the one in the canteen at the hospital.
Well, Mary, I think the last time we had a chat, I think it was at the retirement party of Mr. Walker.
Yeah.
And Mr. Pluis.
Uh-huh.
And do you remember us having a little chat there? That was you, Mary, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I remember you very well. And
Yes.
my experiences at Dunelm were beautiful. There were
Yeah.
some wonderful people there.
Well, I just heard you talking. I said, I thought I have to say something to Ken. Seeing it's our triplet's birthday, it doesn't happen every day.
Isn't that amazing?
And
Well,
we're the
congratulations.
Yeah, we're the oldest triplets in Saskatchewan as far as we know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Amazing record.
Yes.
Thanks for calling,
Thank
Mary.
you.
All right, bye.
Well, Ken, there's a little bit of human interest in
I should say so.
that phone call. Now, to get back to you were telling us, if you can pick up your thread of thought about your activities with entertainment along with Ralph Deversey, Kim Aberdeen, and so on, or if you would prefer, in connection with entertainment, what about your achievements with the local theater club? Because I'm beginning to understand you're active with them, too.
Well, I'm not presently active because...
I thought you were.
No, that's right. When we came to Swift Current, the little theater organization was organized. At least it was just the beginning of the movement, little theater movement. I became involved. As a matter of fact, Kim and Ralph and our wives were all involved. Marion was involved in little theater, and as a matter of fact, she was involved in the collegiate days too in drama. But we became involved, and I suppose we were members of the little theater organization here for 14 or 15 years, well, until the war, and it wasn't too active during those years. But yes, I very happy, and I had some wonderful experiences in little theater. I think I was in 4 or 5 festival plays that went to the DDF in Regina and Weyburn.
Was that the Saskatchewan Drama Festival?
The Dominion Drama Festival, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they had regional play downs, and then in those days, of course, they used to bring the best play from each of the provinces into a central point for a final festival. But the one year, of course, that gave me the biggest thrill, and it was actually a sort of a second go-around little theater. I had been out of it for quite some time, and Dr. Beatty, I don't know whether you knew Dr. Beatty, who's in town here.
No.
But Dr. Beatty was, in my estimation, a very brilliant director. He died a year after, in the fall, I believe, of the year we won the Esteban Festival. But in that year, Swift Current took most of the awards, as a matter
You
of fact.
got something, too, in the way of an award.
Yes, I am very proud of that award. I happened to win the Best Actor Award that year in 1962, I guess it would be. And, of course, I have to give Dr. Beatty most of the credit because he was a terrific director. He had to be to get me to win an award.
Well, now speaking about actors, leads me, at least in the questioning business, into another field, because certainly there are a lot of actors and characters associated with what we'd like to chat with you next about, and that is the development of frontier days.
Well, that of course has been one of the most rewarding experiences, I suppose, that anyone could ever have, and I wouldn't regret. I'd want to do it over again. I became a member of the Kinetic Club.
Let's set this in time, Ken.
Yes. Well, this would be 1935 that the Kinetic Club was organized. And in 1938, the Kinetic Club took over, they wanted to take over the permanent July 1st celebration. And prior to that, we'd had, foot races and bicycle races and this sort of thing. And in 1938, the Kinetic Club was given the go-ahead by the city of Swift Current to sponsor the July 1st celebration. And of course, that was the year that we conceived the idea of celebrating the 200th advent of La Vendrée, appearance in the prairies here. So we decided to grow beards and suggested the women wear bustles and poke bonnets and put up hitching posts, and the whole of this whole frontier, or at least this little town, became quite a frontier village. And that year I was referring a little earlier, Will, that was the year that we attracted they estimate around 25,000 people into town here. I can recall the parade went west. We had it in Mitchell Field, the first celebration.
Well, let's look at Mitchell Field in those days.
Yes, it was well, you know where the highway building and where all the machinery on West.
On Chaplin West?
That's right,
Mm-hmm.
5th and between 5th and 6th, or 6th and 7th, I'm not sure. But that was Mitchell Ball Field down there, named after Mitchell that used to be in charge of the bakery here. But that, I can recall, the parade went west on Chaplin. And I can recall standing there in the stands. We had about 3,000 or 4,000 seats, supposedly some reserved. And looking down Chaplin east, and for the 5 or 6 blocks right to Central Avenue, it was one solid, seething mass of humanity. And I looked around at the seats, and most of them were filled by this point, and there were about 15,000 to 20,000 people heading west to try and get a seat. Well, it was really frightening and terrifying.
Business was good, in other words.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was the business was great. But we obviously knew that we couldn't hold another celebration with that type of accommodation. So we met with the city of Swift Current and different organizations, and it was decided to build the fairgrounds out to where it presently is. And Irving Hansen was the fellow who pushed that thing through.
And now, as you look back or drive around on those present grounds, it must be quite a contrast to you, then.
A tremendous contrast, Wolf, because in 1939, that was the year that we decided to celebrate international days. And, of course, the world was on the verge of war, as you recall, and we even went to the extent of inviting Hitler and Mussolini over here. We had their pictures in the Swift Current front page of Swift Current Sun. And we got into a little bit of a hassle over that one because the RCMP, as a matter of fact, were trying to trace down the fellow who invited them. Bill Harding, of course, was first chairman of Friday Days, and Bill's name appeared on the telegram, and we had quite an investigation over it. But those were the things, the crazy things that we did. And when I look at the grounds out there was just a stand, at least the fair, the bleachers. And today, of course, we have so many improvements, and I would hope that the community would continue to stand behind Friday Days and give them every cooperation, because it is an institution that does draw people to Swift Current.
Swift Current still stands out by itself, I think, Ken. I think we can assure you of that. I think you know that yourself, even today, on the Prairie Exhibition Circuit.
I think so, that's true.
Now, what of your years of an active member of the Kiwanis Club?
Well, I joined the Kiwanis Club, I think it was in 1947 or 48, and I had the honor, they gave me the honor of serving them as president in 1952. And in 1969, the boys here persuaded me to run for Lieutenant Governor of Division 4 of the Western Canada District. And Mary and I have some wonderful experiences of serving Kiwanis in 1969 as Lieutenant Governor of this division.
Ken, I hate to do this to you. Our time is going by, and I do want to ask you this question quickly. As you leave, where will you and Mrs. Lewis call home?
Well, we are going to move to Victoria, Wilf, and we'll be living on Jubilee Avenue, Chateau Jubilee. I think it's 1610 Chateau Jubilee, or at least Jubilee Avenue. And we're very close to many of our friends, the Deverseys, the Dodses, and the Gilstraps, and Aberdeens there, and I think we're going to be very happy.
Well, now, if there's any right way to close an interview such as this, and this one has been a real pleasure to us to have the opportunity to put on the air, Ken, it would be a reminder that on this coming Friday, May 5th at 5:30, there will be a special farewell night for Ken and Marion Lewis. And tickets are available, amongst other places, at Smith's Travel Agency, Brad Brooks Drugs, Drugstore, Harry Shaw's Menswear, Jomar Stationery, Smith Jewelers, etc. here in town. And I believe that's being held out at the fairgrounds, too, isn't it? Isn't that out at the...
Well, that's what they tell me.
Yeah, I think that's going to be held out at the Stockade. It's out at the Stockade. Well, Ken, thanks so much for being our guest.
It's been a real pleasure.
We hate to see you go. These things do happen. We know that you will make a lot of friends, you and your good wife, when you get out around Victoria. Become an active part, as I know you will, of that Saskatchewan picnic. We'll undoubtedly be hearing more about you and your wife.
Thanks, Wilf.
Thanks again, Ken Lewis. Wilf Gilby for Vox Pop.